Prince Harry mauls his own brother. He accuses his father, the new king, of being a liar. He even has a dig at his late great-grandmother, the Queen, for standing by and doing nothing. Well, good evening from London. Welcome to Piers Morgan Uncensored. Today, Harry and Meghan torch what little was left of their relationship with the royal family and what little was left, frankly, of their own reputations. Last week was mostly sycophantic. This latest instalment was downright seditious. Prince Harry mauls his own brother. He accuses his father, the new king, of being a liar. He even has a dig at his late great-grandmother, the Queen, for standing by and doing nothing. The royal family is directly accused of destroying two of its own to protect itself. And I don't know where it all stops, all this. Where does it end? We've got the book, and then we've got the interview circuit, and so it goes on. It's all apparently a dark plot by Britain and the royals to smear the poor, defenceless, vulnerable Sussexes. Trickery, treachery, hypocrisy. And if there's one conclusion to draw from the final instalment of their Netflix series, it's that Prince Harry surely is now a traitor to the country that he once served. Unbelievable. This blistering attack, not only on the institution of the monarchy, but also personally against the senior royals who represent our country around the world, is, in my view, beyond contempt. In their selfish, vapid attempts to rewrite history, recasting themselves as victims, these two have sold their souls and they've sold Harry's family down the river. It's unforgivable, and it will leave a bitter taste in the mouths of millions of people. But there are toe-curling moments in this show too, moments that would upset even the strongest of stomachs. Viewers are force-fed simpering clips of the pair frolicking on Californian beaches during COVID, in Tyler Perry's mansion, no less, while most people were locked down, many in tiny homes with lots of children. But they were the real victims, not the thousands of people dying from a new pandemic virus. They again cry foul, of course, at the beastly, horrible media for pursuing them and wanting to take their pictures, whilst persistently throughout this new instalment showing their own highly intrusive pictures of their own children. Did they ask permission from those children to invade their privacy for money, which is, of course, the very charge they make against the media? We also learned that Meghan actually thinks she's done Britain a favour. Really? Well, let me help you. There were a gazillion critical stories about Kate long before your beloved Meghan came along. It had nothing to do with Kate's skin colour, and the Meghan criticism had nothing to do with her skin colour. At all. Nothing to do with it. She just started doing things along with you which were rankly hypocritical and in some cases downright unpleasant, and you both got called out for it, and you don't like being criticised. You think if anyone criticises you, they're automatically bullies and racists. But they're not. In fact, one of the people who's been accused of bullying is Meghan Markle by several of her PAs at the palace who had to sign NDAs so they couldn't tell the truth. I'm sure that Meghan Markle and Harry, who want the truth to come out, would like those NDAs to be lifted, and maybe they should say so publicly. So we can hear from those PAs, who I know at least one of them was regularly reduced to tears by the bullying from Meghan Markle. And if Meghan doesn't think she did bully, of course she can sue me, because I've said it now. So come and sue me, and let's take it to court. All of this leaves a deeply unpleasant taste in the mouth, doesn't it? And again, I say simply, where does it end? How much damage do they want to cause? They can't be allowed back to any royal events because they'll probably be wired up and taped for the next series of their thrilling life story. So what do? What does King Charles do about his own son? Does he cut him off? Does he strip him of his titles? This is his son. It's a Shakespearean tragedy unfurling. And I'm afraid when it comes to help, I think Prince Harry might be beyond it. He's been manipulated, and I think partly it's down to him as well, into believing they're genuine freedom fighters.
To see this institutional gaslighting.
You're Prince Harry, the Duke of Sussex, once third in line to the throne. It doesn't get a lot more powerful than you before you decamped for your freedom, before you gave up any royal duty, but wanted to have your royal cake and eat it by keeping your titles so you could exploit them. and make gazillions of dollars in America to the highest bidder. And what do you do for that money? You trash your family endlessly. And you're going to keep doing it, as does your wife, who trashes her own family, most of whom she's disowned. Is this what happiness looks like, Harry? Really? You're happy? Hating your entire family? Your wife hating all hers, apart from her mother? Like many of the claims in the series, none of this stacks up, does it? There were the claims of racism at the palace, but no evidence of who that person was or what they actually said. Apparently, Meghan, she repeated this in this new instalment, was banned by somebody at the palace from seeking help for her suicidal thoughts. Think about that for a moment. Who was that person? Are they still working at the palace? Does that person exist? Did somebody actually say to her, you might be feeling suicidal, but it's bad for the brand, you can't get help? And if they did, where was her husband in all this? Where was Prince Harry, Mr. Mental Health? He never stops banging on about it and about the need to get help. And yet when his own wife apparently had suicidal thoughts, he didn't get her help. Does that make any sense? Does that sound even remotely plausible to you? Because it doesn't to me. So that's where we are. Another tissue of self-serving lies, mostly, I suspect. We don't know yet, but most of it looks like the Oprah interview, just another load of unsubstantiated smears designed to portray them as victims. But it doesn't really pass the muster of fact-checking. 1 minute they're the beloved young couple who inspired a nation, the next that nation is horribly racist, out to throw Meghan to the wolves from the very beginning. The attacks on the press were so wicked that she was hated and feared for her life. But also the entire plot against them was because they were simply too popular. So they were hated and despised and too popular. And this was all apparently a heroic fight for family privacy, but we have to learn about that fight in a $100 million reality TV show that flaunts their young family and boasts about their very public social justice campaigns. Harry and Meghan take their audience for fools. They blame everybody but themselves. They present even the most incendiary of claims with no evidence. And sadly, the impact is real. The royal family is getting damaged. The monarchy is getting tarnished. People are believing, including Beyoncé, it appeared from this series. They're believing that the royal family are a bunch of callous racists. Well, they're not. I know the royal family, a lot of them well, and they're not callous racists. And they're furious about this.
It was all very distasteful, Piers. I was totally bored by the whining. And, you know, the curtsy, the thing she said about medieval times, her lunch with the Queen was like medieval times, which, as you know, is a Disney-type entertainment place for kids. And it's just so horribly disrespectful and just a whine fest. I mean, is the book going to be the same thing? Whining? Is there going to be no positive points? And that whole thing of him filming himself on the Freedom flight, they must have had that deal with Netflix done months before they ever left. So the whole thing was a setup. Why, unless you had a deal, why would you have done that filming of yourself on the plane and all of that?
And also, what kind of freedom?
Doing a video diary, what?
Yeah, and what kind of freedom is it if all you're doing is living in your California mansion with unbelievable privilege and wealth, and you're signing all these deals with companies who want their pound of flesh, and that pound of flesh is exclusively trashing your family? I mean, this is all they do. From the Oprah interview onwards,
but
all they've done is trash their families.
Onwards is trash. But there's nothing about themselves, you know, and this is a great time for them to keep talking about their charity. But no, it's about them being these poor little children who are so much in love and how abused they've been. Their race, the way they act, everything has been, you know, abused by the public, by the press, by the royal family. Well, do you know what? You've got a great life. You've got a beautiful family. You're so much in love. Move on.
Well, welcome back. I'm a lover of red meat, but my next guest takes it to the extreme. Brian Johnson, also known as the Liver King, has brought his unconventional lifestyle to the mainstream with millions of fans. But is his clean living all as it seems?
This is what the Liver King is having for dinner today. I'm having liver with breakfast, lunch, and dinner because liver is king.
Can't be in here without your shirt on.
Oh,
You don't have a shirt.
You know what? Somebody said that earlier. You might not know this. I'm actually wearing a muscle shirt. I'm making this video to apologize. Because I f***ed up. Yes, I've done steroids. I am as sorry as a man can be.
Well, Brian Johnson, aka the Liver King, joins me now. Well, thank you for joining me, Brian. Your 9 ancestral tenets, which is what's made you so rich and famous, are sleep, eat, move, shield, connect, cold, sun, fight, bond. Pretty laudable lineup of tenets to have in life, I would argue. But you've got to add another one now, 10, which is steroid drug abuse. How much do you think that has damaged your reputation and your integrity?
First of all, I deserve what you just said. And I also want to say thank you for giving me this opportunity to come on here to talk about this. My job is to acknowledge how bad people are hurting today. I believe there's this path forward, a better life to live. I call it ancestral living. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk about this. How much does it damage my integrity? A lot. You know, but what I want to say is this, is my integrity, my brand, I would say that this doesn't have anything to do with the North Star. The North Star, the message is far bigger than me, right? The message really is people are hurting at record rates. There's a better life to live. It can be achieved through ancestral living.
I mean, it's interesting. I got a text message today from a very, very famous television personality who is known for his own healthy living, who said to me that you screwed up with the steroid stuff, but your heart is good. You're a lovely family man. Your views on living an empowered life through struggle, primal nutrition, sun, ice, and community are spot on. So notwithstanding the steroid scandal, he thought that actually the tenets that you stand for, that you've been promoting, still stand the test of time. So I guess it's going to be interesting, isn't it, to see what your fans make of this, because a lot of it is down to trust, isn't it? You come bursting onto the scene, you're hugely popular, you're making all this money, but it's based on the belief that your diet, which is obviously very unusual, and I've got some of it here, the raw liver, that constantly eating that is what turns you into the person we see on our screen, when in fact it's now turned out to be largely driven by steroids. There's a trust issue there.
I understand that, and I hope that we have the opportunity to eat some raw liver together since you have some there. There's a trust issue here, right? And you don't have to believe what I'm saying, but what you have to believe is that the world is hurting at record rates, that these are the facts, that 4,000 people a day actually kill themselves, that 80,000 people a day try to do it. 85% of the population, they struggle with self-esteem issues. 80% of the population struggles paycheck to paycheck. 70% are overweight, half are obese, 50% are on prescription medicine, 40% have or will get cancer, and 20% want to have kids and can't have kids. So what you got to believe is this. These are the facts. So now how do we lead a better life? How do we get better? How do we start to overcome these issues? What I believe, right, and I've gone and visited with modern-day primitive culture tribes in the Amazon and Africa and Mongolia. This is how they live. These 9 ancestral tenets, they don't have material possessions. They're kicking ass in life. You know, so what I'll tell you is this. I lived this way before social media. I've eaten these things. I have liver. I have some testicle right here. I have some bone marrow right here. We ate this way. My family and I did this before social. We're going to continue to do this on social. After social, we'll continue to live this way. I believe so deeply in this that this is my why in the world.
Still believe that eating raw liver is the real answer to life?
You should have some too. I know you have a plate.
I've got some here, and I'm going to have some.
Piers Morgan eats liver with the Liver King. You know
what? It doesn't taste too bad. I'm not squeamish about food. I'll pretty well eat anything, raw or cooked. It tastes okay. I couldn't imagine living on it 3 times a day, but I could probably have a go. Final question, and we're running out of time. Are you ever going to take steroids again?
So I'm currently on them right now. and I have a plan to come completely off of them. I believe so deeply in this message, the 9 ancestral tenets. I know that I can come off of them. I know I can still kick ass in life.
Okay.
You won't see the same guy in a
King,
couple of months, but...
I've got to leave it there. Good to have you on the programme. I appreciate the honesty, finally. Well, good evening from London. Welcome to Piers Morgan Uncensored. Britain isn't feeling very festive this Christmas. It's more a case of no, no, no than ho, ho, ho. Feels like we're living in a country in constant decline. War in Europe has brought tragedy to our doorsteps and rocketing bills to our doormats. Families are being paid to turn off their power just to prevent blackouts. Millions of people can barely afford to keep it switched on in the first place. Eye-watering inflation is taking more money out of people's pockets with every passing month. Supermarket prices are soaring, just as we're sucked into what could be an historic recession. Now, austerity is looming, compounded by a mismanaged Brexit that's bringing disasters rather than dividends. And far from providing answers and leadership, our politics is paralysed by perpetual chaos. 5 education secretaries, 4 chancellors, 3 prime ministers in a year. The Conservative Party's been in power for 12 years, and even to many of its own supporters, it now looks punch-drunk, out of ideas and on the ropes. And as a result, trade unions can smell blood like vultures around a rotten carcass. And with a wave of winter strikes worse than anything we've seen in many decades, they're trying to land a knockout blow. Mick the Grinch Lynch of the RMT is the flag bearer for Britain's strike chaos. 40,000 of his rail workers are walking out this week. He refused to be interviewed by me today, as he has done for many weeks. Following a series of cantankerous car crash interviews he conducted this morning, we found out why he's got so camera shy.
You are robbing them of their income for the coming year. Many of them are saying they're going to go bust.
Well, we're not targeting Christmas. It isn't Christmas yet, Richard. I don't know when your Christmas starts, but mine starts on Christmas Eve. We understand the anger that's caused by the disruption of the stoppages, of course. But we are getting a lot of support from the public. We continue to get messages. People continue to visit our picket lines. And what businesses ought to be asking the government is, why are they subsidising this strike? You're just parroting the most right-wing stuff that you can get hold of on behalf of the establishment. And it's about time you showed some partiality towards your listeners and to working-class people in this country.
Of course, a lot of working-class people have been directly impacted by these strikes. Mick Lynch hasn't got any answers. It's not right-wing. It's not an establishment cover-up. Public support for these strikes is evaporating because people are angry. And they're angry because it feels like Britain is falling apart and we're all being held to ransom now by these union bosses. Nothing seems to work anymore. Bus drivers, postal workers, nurses, highway controllers are all set to strike this week. The army is preparing to cover border security at airports. Taxi drivers could be used to cover ambulance strikes over Christmas. Britain has become a paralysed laughingstock, and we all deserve better. We've had enough, haven't we, of all this chaos, of this decline? We've certainly had enough, I think, of the people who have been putting us in this position. And it's time, as a country, we started fighting back.